do you think of Colby?
I think that guy like he's a bit tough guy, but not my level. Gonna go and knock him out. Come to the fight and smash his face.
Khamzat Chimaev proved he's the real deal, but is he ready for Colby Covington? Hello everybody and welcome back to Athlete Central. Today we are going to discuss one of the most hyped UFC prospects that we've seen in a while. A fighter that has captivated the attention of fans, the UFC president.
The guy's special. I've been in this game my whole life. I've never seen anything like him.
And even the fighters.
Nah, he's doing great.
It is the undefeated welterweight from Sweden that was born in Chechnya, Khamzat Chimaev. 5-0 in the UFC with a recent win against number 2 welterweight contender Gilbert Burns at UFC 273. All of this has been accomplished in under 2 years, from virtually going unknown to UFC superstar. Today we here at Athlete Central want to discuss his performance against Burns and also see if he is ready for someone like Colby Covington. So without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Khamzat was definitely a rocket ship to stardom when the UFC booked him against Gilbert Burns. At the start of his UFC tenure, Khamzat took a fight on short notice against middleweight John Phillips, beating the Welsh striker to a pulp, showing off his incredible wrestling and only absorbing a single strike throughout the duration of the 2-round fight that ended with Khamzat securing a Bravo choke.
Declaring the winner by submission due to a Darce choke, Khamzat Chimaev.
His next fight was a domination of Rhys McKee, out-wrestling him and landing some magnificent ground and pound before the referee was forced to stop the fight.
Another win for Khamzat Chimaev. He is a wrecking ball.
One that broke the record for the quickest back-to-back wins in the organization's history, just 10 days. Chimaev came out of the fight unscathed with not a single significant strike absorbed. He faced standout grappler Gerald Meerschaert next, showing his incredible stand-up power. Just 17 seconds in, Meerschaert was out cold after a bomb of a right hand from Khamzat, who showed that he can make a smart game plan, choosing to stand with the grappler instead of engaging on the ground. His breakthrough fight into the rankings was against Chinese welterweight Li Jingliang. Khamzat absolutely smashed Li, picking him up and slamming him on the side of the octagon, and all of this while he was talking to Dana White. Only 3 minutes in, Chimaev choked Jingliang out with a rear naked choke, earning his spot in the UFC rankings. There were still a lot of questions surrounding him though, heading into his bout against Gilbert Burns at UFC 273. Chimaev was a heavy -500 betting favorite, and there were a lot of people who honestly thought that Burns was going to run through Burns like he had the rest of his competition. Some others thought that the jump from low-level competition straight to the number 2 welterweight in the world would have been too steep. The fight wasn't a one-sided domination either way. It was an absolute war, something that we have never seen Khamzat in before. This was the first decision victory of his career and a fight that told us a lot about his skill set.
And still undefeated, Khamzat.
In comparison to the top echelon of the welterweight division. The fight started out with an early takedown attempt from Burns, which was unsuccessful and turned into a clinch battle, where Khamzat showed some explosiveness early on. After an ongoing battle, Khamzat showed his grappling pedigree by landing a takedown on Burns. However, Durinho gave him the most resistance he has felt in a long time and managed to get back up to his feet relatively quickly. Not all top welterweights are on the level of Burns when it comes to grappling, but the 2 top dogs, Colby Covington and Kamaru Usman, certainly are. Definitely not in terms of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Heck, Usman was trying to avoid grappling exchanges in his fight with Burns, but in terms of wrestling, they are definitely superior. This means that even though Chimaev is an exceptional wrestler, his skills will be tested at the highest level against fellow top wrestlers. Chimaev also looked hesitant to go to the ground with Burns, especially after an armbar attempt from the Brazilian late on in the round. And after the fight in an interview, Burns even commented on that fact, saying that he wanted to keep it standing after seeing how dangerous Durinho was from his back. Now, throughout the first round, Burns was landing some nice hooks and some great leg kicks on Khamzat, something the Swede hasn't really experienced before. In a fight with Colby, those power shots or leg kicks will not be a huge concern, given the fact that Covington relies on his wrestling and volume striking to get the job done. Burns continued kicking and making Chimaev miss in the middle of the round, getting the better of the exchanges and keeping the pressure on Khamzat. He was not scared of Chimaev's takedown threat and continued throwing kicks to both the body and the legs. Chimaev also showed that he has those kicks in his arsenal in the first round, which we hadn't really seen him utilize kicks because 3 of his 4 fights took place on the ground and 1 ended in just 17 seconds. His stand-up was highlighted even more when he scored the knockdown, throwing a slight feint that made Burns flinch and hitting him with the other hand. He followed it up with some nice ground and pound, but Burns surprisingly started throwing strikes from his back and then threw up the armbar that we talked about that made Khamzat retreat from that position. Chimaev ended the round with some naked kicks with nothing in front of them, allowing Burns to counter. Those mistakes have to be eradicated at the top level, especially against Usman, who has 2 KOs in his last 3 wins. One wrong move can be a game changer. One noticeable feature about Khamzat in this fight was his tendency to switch stances effectively. He managed to make use of the southpaw stance very well, having some good success in the stand-up despite Burns countering well. When he switched to orthodox, he had some trouble defending against Durinho's leg kicks. He virtually had no answer for them, no checking or getting out of the way. Now this could be detrimental in a fight against Vicente Luque, for example, who utilizes leg kicks very well. Chimaev's team needs to incorporate some sort of defense into their game plan. And on a different note, Chimaev also showed a very positive side to his game when he defended against a well-executed takedown from Burns. After the failed takedown though, Burns landed a nice left hand, knocking Chimaev down momentarily and pouncing for a finish, but Khamzat proved he has a chin. Some fighters don't get their chin tested, and then when they get hurt, they cannot recover. Take Edmund Shimbaizin as an example, went 11-0, but is now on a 3-fight losing streak after facing superior competition and getting his chin tested. Chimaev showed that he can hang with the top dogs and endure hard shots, coming back after Burns poured everything he had on him. He was undoubtedly tired, but was still swinging heavy, and even with his fatigue, managed to fend off another takedown attempt from Burns, sprawling beautifully and ending up on top. Maybe it was the lack of willingness to engage or just exhaustion, but Burns was able to kick Khamzat off of him in a dramatic fashion, with the fight getting back to the feet. Chimaev then started picking up the pace a bit, but Burns managed to land a hard shot towards the end of the round, one that knocked Khamzat down. But the Swede then took Burns down after getting hurt with seconds left on the clock. When the second round ended, Chimaev threw a sucker punch after the bell, showing clear signs of frustration. Now this does not bode well if Chimaev is ever to face someone like Colby Covington. Colby's specialty is getting under his opponent's skin.
Come shot Chimaev, he's got to do a lot more work than get 3 fights in the UFC.
So Chimaev has to keep his cool and not let his frustrations get the best of him. Maybe it was the anger of getting knocked down, but he really needs to try not to let his temper get the best of him because it may lead him to defeat. In the third round, Khamzat realized that he had lost the second round and started using his reach more, beating Burns to the punches and jabbing to maintain distance. He was utilizing the southpaw stance effectively yet again and throwing nice and crisp straight punches instead of looping them. This saw Burns shoot for another takedown, but despite Khamzat defending it well, Durinho got Burns to the ground for a moment. Chimaev's fatigue must have played a part in this, but that really does not bode well for a fight against Colby. Covington is a relentless cardio machine. He can go 5 rounds without breaking a sweat, and his takedowns are more threatening than Burns. This means that in a potential fight, Colby might start getting the grappling edge in the later rounds. As the round went on, Khamzat's fatigue increased, and he started leaving his guard down, allowing Burns to land some nice punches and pressure Khamzat a bit more. Chimaev did start landing some nice uppercuts and piled on the pressure at the end of the electric fight that is definitely a candidate for Fight of the Year. Chimaev showed that he can hang with the top dogs, but some of his flaws definitely were exposed. Now this doesn't mean that he isn't a top prospect, but Burns showed that Chimaev is definitely beatable. Colby could potentially get an advantage over Chimaev in the later rounds if he is able to survive an early onslaught from Khamzat. Chimaev can definitely adapt by the time his next fight comes around, and he definitely showed some great aspects of his game against one of the best fighters in the welterweight division. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Make sure to like and subscribe to never miss an Athlete Central video. Comment what video you want to see us make next, and until next time, stay safe.